Morbid curiosity, a term defined as having an interest in unpleasant things. If there's something I can't stomach at all, it's gore, especially in video games where your character dies in horrific ways if you fail. It's the same reason I've never played games like Tomb Raider or The Evil Within. But every now and then, my morbid curiosity gets the best out of me and I'll end up watching stuff like Resident Evil 4 Remake, all death scenes, only to be like... This morbid curiosity also applies to bad endings, which is the main topic I want to discuss today. I've always been fascinated by bad endings. In most games, whenever you lose, you know exactly what to expect. You lose your lives, you get a game over, and you reload your last save point. That's how it is most of the time. But how often do you get to see the consequences of your failures? How often does a game make you reap what you sow? That's where bad endings come in. More than just being a longer game over screen, these what-if scenarios have the potential to be just as powerful, if not more powerful than actual good and happy endings. And when they leave a mark on you, man, that's something else. I don't think I need to explain anything further than that, so why don't we look at some fantastic bad endings in video games? Also, just so you know, this video naturally contains spoilers about many different games, but don't worry, I'll divide it in different sections so you can avoid those you don't wanna see. Are we good? Then let's get to it! Dead Rising. You know I'll bring up any excuse to talk about this franchise, but hey, if it fits the bill, I don't see the harm. So yeah, as many of you know, Dead Rising is a franchise defined by its time limit, as you have a set amount of days to discover the truth behind the outbreak and escape. And once the timer runs out or you defeat the final boss, you'll get a different ending depending on your actions. There are so many bad endings in this franchise, but some of the most impactful ones include Katie being taken away by the US Army while Chuck is screaming at them to bring her back. Man, that is heartbreaking. Carlito's plan being a success by blowing up the shopping mall and infecting all of the United States with the zombie parasite. Nick planning to betray all of his friends only to be left behind to die. Or what about Chuck losing his only daughter only to let himself get eaten alive by zombies? Some of these endings are insane. Oh, and did you know that Dead Rising 3 has an unused bad ending where Nick gets brutally beaten to death by the survivors? It is believed you could have gotten this ending by killing many survivors throughout the course of the adventure, but was scrapped because, unlike previous entries, you can't injure survivors in this game. Still, the cutscene is mostly complete and easy to find online, so check it out if you're curious. But what I like about Dead Rising is that just because you get the A or S ending, that doesn't exactly mean they're the happiest of them all. In Dead Rising 1, it was genuinely shocking to see Frank lose his only escape route and give up on all hope as the zombies approach him. And even then, the true canonical ending that follows up on this one still leaves you with this feeling of unease. It is far from a happy ending. And in Dead Rising 2, Chuck being surrounded in an elevator by zombies is the true ending. Not the happy one where he walks away with his daughter, but the one where he gets left behind. It's this and many other things that make me adore Dead Rising as much as I do. Be honest with me for a second. Did you guys know that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate had bad endings? It's so weird because I never see people talk about this. It wasn't until 3 years ago that I found out about this, and yes, it's true! In the World of Light mode, during the final section, you're given the option to fight the two final bosses, Galem and Darkon. Normally, what you want to do is to fight both of them at the same time. Yes, it's more difficult, but in doing so, you get all the spirits to return to their respective worlds, earning you the best ending. But something I was never aware of is that you can fight Galem or Darkon separately, and defeating each of them like this turns you one of two bad endings. Defeating Darkon first allows Galem to reshape the entire universe to his image, filling everything with so much light that you basically go back to how it all started at the beginning of the adventure. While defeating Galem allows Darkon to engulf the entire world in darkness, and you get to see Mario die right in front of your eyes. As an adult, this is like, whatever. But imagine how jarring it must have been for a kid to get one of these endings by accident. I know it's nothing too impressive, but the fact that Smash Bros has bad endings, and it took me so long to find out they existed, made me want to mention them on this video. Also because they're probably one of the most interesting things about World of Light. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was just alright. Subspace Emissary remains supreme! Woo! Getting bad endings in games is always jarring. It's so sad to see the consequences of your failures and think about what will happen in the long run. But how often does a game tries to rectify a bad ending? Well, here we have Castlevania Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow. Fantastic games where you take the role of Soma Cruz, a young man who is actually the reincarnation of Dracula himself. So because of that, in both games there comes a few plot points in which Soma must deal with the darkness that tries to take over him. By overcoming that, he will be locked en route to the best endings. But if he succumbs to it, he will fully become Dracula once again, earning you a bad ending. It's sad in some ways, but not everything is lost. It may be too late to save Soma Cruz, but you can still save the world. And that's where Julius Belmont enters the scene. Right before the final area of Aria of Sorrow, Julius also learns the true identity of Soma Cruz, and as a Belmont, they duke it out in one of the greatest boss fights you'll experience in your life! And right after that, he believes that there's still a chance to save Soma's humanity and allows you to proceed. However, right before he leaves, Soma asks of Julius one last favor. If he were to fail and becomes the Dark Lord, he asks Julius to come find him and kill him. So in case you lose against the final boss and become Dracula, a small cutscene will play, in which Julius will show up to fulfill his promise to Soma as the screen fades to black. And hey, by all accounts, I think he should be fine. Julius Belmont is easily the toughest, but also the greatest boss in the entire game, hell, probably in the entire franchise. And yet, he was holding back this entire time. And don't forget, this man canonically killed Dracula for good in 1999. So even if this bad ending marks the end of Soma Cruz, I think the world will be safe regardless. And same thing happens in Dawn of Sorrow. If you don't have a specific item equipped at a certain point of the game, Soma will embrace the darkness and become the Dark Lord. But here's what's so cool about the entire thing. If you get the bad ending, you also unlock Julius Mode, which as the name implies, lets you play the entire game as Julius Belmont in an effort to stop Soma once and for all. However, he's not alone. You can also play as Choco Belnades and Alucard, feeling like an amazing throwback to Castlevania 3. Without Grant, of course. Nonetheless, this mode is so much fun and very challenging. The only drawback about this is that there's barely any dialogue at all, but from a pure gameplay standpoint, it's fantastic. And I just want to take this opportunity to say, Julius Belmont is my favorite Belmont of them all, and the fact that he never got his own game is a crime. But hey, having his own extra mode ain't too bad either. Ace Attorney is a franchise in which losing is just as simple as getting a guilty verdict and being kicked back to the title screen, with all implications of bad stuff being left to your imagination. However, there's been some exceptions. In the Ace Attorney Investigations games, there are multiple instances in which failing the case at different points will earn you different game overs. However, in other games, it is not uncommon to see a bad ending if you screw up at some point of the final case. In Apollo Justice, for example, selecting the guilty verdict will cause the verdict to be postponed and the defendant dies on the same night. It's a bit dark, but I don't know, I also find it kinda lame, like, how come a hung jury caused the defendant to die? How does she know about it? She was in the hospital dealing with poison the entire time. The one in Dual Destinies is kinda cool though. Failing to prove Simon Blackwell's innocence will cause him to get executed the next day. His sister disappears with a bunch of hostages, including Phoenix Wright's daughter, Trucy. Athena leaves the agency, and Apollo never smiles again. But the crowning jewel of them all is the bad ending in Ace Attorney Justice for All. This one is insane, not only because it is so easy to get, but because it happens during one of the most tense moments in the entire series. But first, you need some context to understand what makes this bad ending so iconic. Long story short, in the final case of Justice for All, Farewell My Turnabout, your best friend Maya Fey gets kidnapped by the assassin Shelley the Killer. And in exchange for her life, all you have to do is to get your defendant Matt and Garth a non-guilty verdict. Simple enough, right? However, The game takes such a sick turn of events that you just get smacked with a bunch of shocking revelations. You find out that your defendant is actually the one who hired the assassin to kill his rival and kidnap your friend. And at this point of the game, all the blame is being pinned down on a woman named Adrian Andrews. And while she's far from innocent, she's still a victim in all of this. So it comes to a point in which the case puts your morals to the test. Do you incriminate an innocent person to save your friend? Or do you put a criminal behind bars while forfeiting the life of someone important to you? This right here is one of the craziest and most tense scenarios I've ever experienced in a game. It is so much pressure in fact that even Phoenix Wright breaks down at some point. However, when all seems lost, prosecutor Francisca Von Karma shows up with a bunch of random evidence. So what you have to do is to use this random evidence to turn Shelly the killer against his client. Getting this right gives you one of the most satisfying breakdowns in all of Ace Attorney and a very happy ending. But if you mess it up, you get a bad ending, which gives defendant Matt Garth a non-guilty verdict. Phoenix Wright runs away in shame and wanders the streets alone, and that's when it all hits you. You let a murderer walk free. You put an innocent person behind bars. You save your best friend, of course, but you cannot bring yourself to face her ever again, and not just that, you shattered all of your beliefs in the process. It is utterly depressing to watch. So no matter what happens, make sure you get that good ending at all costs. Farewell My Turnabout remains one of the greatest cases in the entire Ace Attorney series, no, I'm serious! Justice for All is often considered one of the weakest games in the franchise, but this case alone makes the entire playthrough worth it. It's so good. Fire Emblem. It is not well known that some of these games feature bad endings, and I can't blame anyone for that. On one hand, because the games that have bad endings are Japan exclusive. On the other, the bad endings are bad! But not in the cool sort of way, I'm talking about they're lame because they're not too different from the happy endings. Sure, the game ends sooner and you don't get a full closure. But the bad aspect of it, it's literally just some text at the end that says, and then Marth lived happily ever after. Except when he had to go to war again. However, there is one bad ending that actually stands out, and it comes from the game you will least expect it. Engage. Yeah, the same game that shows Hiya Papaya in your face every 5 seconds had the balls to punish you for losing, and not just that, it's actually quite disturbing to watch. If Alia were to fall in the final battle against Sombron, you'll be greeted with a cutscene in which the fell dragon taunts you by saying everyone you care about is dead. And to make matters worse, your little sister Bale is now fully under his control once again. And if that wasn't enough, Alir loses their divine dragon powers, which reverts them back to a filled dragon state. This is especially horrible since Bale now wears the Ring of the Connector, which grants her full control of Alir as they can do nothing but be horrified by the situation. It's such a small and simple bad ending, but I find it so effective. Your friends are dead, your sister is mind-controlled, and now Alir is doomed to an eternity of serving Sombron against their will. And the fact that you can get this bad ending right after one of the hypest cutscenes in the entire game makes this even more shocking to watch. A stark contrast to the rest of the game, which is pretty much... Undertale! Yeah, I think some of you were expecting me to mention the genocide route in that game, but I won't talk about it. Sadly, I still haven't beaten Undertale. But I can tell you about Deltarune Chapter 2 Snowgrave route. Man, this one is fantastic! We aren't talking about one cutscene that plays at the end. We're dealing with an entire sequence in which you do the worst decisions ever. Manipulate your friends while potentially killing one in the process. Noel Holiday is one of the central characters of Chapter 2 and the focus of the Snowgrave route. Noel is a very shy, gentle and innocent girl. However, if you decide to aim for the bad ending, then get ready to shatter that image of her. It all starts with you, the player, trying to help her become stronger. This is done by freezing enemies and making her steal better equipment. You force her to kill enemies, you force her to complete puzzles for you. She's initially confused and scared by all of this, but you brainwash her into believing this is all for the better, as it will make her stronger. It comes to a point in which she starts seeing her friend Burley as another enemy to freeze. And honestly, this is one of my favorite moments of the game. Burley is always depicted as this arrogant jackass who sees himself above others. But the instant he notices you're completely messing up with Noel, his personality changes and engages you in battle just to save his friend. Unfortunately for him, your manipulation goes so far that you force Noel to use the Snowgrave spell, which freezes Burley in the process. After this event, Noel's mental health takes a heavy toll, and she disappears for most of the remaining route. And by the end of it, you just explore the castle for a little bit, fight Spantom in an incredibly difficult battle, and then go back home. It is here where you can witness the consequences of your actions. Burley doesn't wake up, which may imply he actually died. Susie doesn't feel like you really saved the world, and Noel's personality is more brash and abrasive. She initially believes this entire experience was nothing more than a bad dream, but you can prove her grown by giving her the scare of her life. What I also love about this Snowgrave route is that the more you delve into it, the more ominous the atmosphere becomes. The music slows down and becomes distorted, NPCs disappear from the overworld, puzzles and optional areas get blocked off, and the story becomes way shorter in comparison to the normal route, and by the end of it, you're left with this feeling of emptiness. Oh yeah, and you wanna add some insult to injury? It is heavily implied that this entire time the main character Chris was never in control of their actions. This was all your fault. You, the player, are the sick monster who caused all of this. I've known of some people who have refused to do the Snowgrave route because of how messed up it can get. And honestly, I can't blame them for it. It's an experience that is very hard to watch and it makes you feel like a horrible person. But man, it's so damn good! I'll be honest with you, I've never played a Fallout game. This is either because I haven't had the opportunity to try them or because of Todd Howard's sweet little lies.
All of this just works. I'm not kidding.
However, I've always had some interest in the series, especially the older games. I don't know what it is, but they just look so unique. From the weird characters, the lore, the setting, and many more things. And this interest was born because of one thing. I saw the bad ending of Fallout 1, and it left such a strong impression on me that it pushed me to get more interested in the game. Again, I haven't played Fallout 1 yet, so I apologize beforehand if I make a mistake here. In the story, the main character, the Vault Dweller, is tasked with leaving the Vault 13 to search for a water chip that will fix a machine that recycles the water inside the vault, ensuring the survival of everyone. Throughout your journey, you come to know a lot of settlements, unique characters, and different factions. One of these factions being the Unity. An army of super mutants led by the Master who aim to transform healthy humans into one of them by dipping them into a toxic substance known as the FEB. So the ultimate goal of the game isn't just to change your water filter, but to stop an army of super mutants from taking over the wasteland. However, there is a different outcome to this. At different points of the game, you can choose to ally with the Unity and reveal the location of your vault. And by doing so, you get this disturbing cutscene where your character is fully covered in bandages and gets thrown into a container full of FEB, followed by another scene where you get to witness the super mutants raiding your previous home, killing innocents and dismembering them. Man, this ending is brutal! What also makes this outcome even more special is the old 3D graphics from the 90s. It really gives these cutscenes a horror vibe of sorts, which is so cool. Even if I still don't play a Fallout game to this day, watching this ending left such an impact on me that I just had to mention it on this video. I think the first time I ever experienced a bad ending was when I played Banjo-Kazooie as a kid. I was just trying to quit the game, and what do I get? My sister being transformed into an ugly creature. But okay, I'm getting ahead of things here. Back in the day, Rareware were masters of many things. They knew how to make incredibly title-designed games that have stood up against the test of time. for the most part. But they also knew how to leave an impression on you if you lost, as they will often make game over screens that could easily scare some children. The ones in Donkey Kong Country were definitely a bit eerie for some people, but they took it a step further in the N64 era, as getting a game over will actually show you what will happen if the heroes failed to stop the villains, and it was very easy to get them. Just quitting the game manually was more than enough to watch these cutscenes. In Banjo-Kazooie, you get to see Gruntilda successfully steal your sister Tootie's youth, as the latter becomes a monster while the former becomes a baddie. Okay, maybe this one isn't so bad now that I think of it. You know, I always found it strange that Banjo-Tooie had no bad ending, given how darker that game was compared to its prequel. Kind of a missed opportunity there, if I am honest. But at least in Donkey Kong 64, you have a cutscene of King K. Rool laughing maniacally as he's about to blow up Donkey Kong Island with a giant laser, which they actually follow up in Smash Bros. Ultimate with his final smash. That was pretty cool, actually. But I think the one that takes the cake here is Conker's Bad Fur Day. It doesn't just have one bad ending, but multiple ones, and it depends on different factors, how you dive and when you dive. For context, one of the plot points of the game is that King Panther wants to capture a red squirrel, in this case Conker, to act as a replacement for his broken table leg so his milk won't spill. If you lose all of your lives, then he will capture Conker, who will spend the rest of his days as a table leg replacement. However, if you lose at any point of the game before this plot point is unveiled, then Conker will simply disappear, never to be seen again. But say, if you die by drowning, getting burnt alive, or by being mutilated, then King Panther's minions will bring in your corpse but in a soggy, charred or bloody bag respectively. It's pretty messed up, but I think the true bad ending of this game is the actual ending itself. After losing the love of his life right in front of his eyes, Conker is forced to fight a xenomorph taken straight out of Alien in outer space. As the creature is about to land the killing blow, time freezes, and one of the game's developers contacts Conker, pretty much giving him anything he wants. He grabs a weapon, goes back to Earth, and slices the head of the xenomorph. And it all seems like a good victory. King Panther is dead, Conker survived the attack, and everything is back to normal. Except for one thing. Conker forgot to ask the developer to bring his girlfriend back to life. It's after this that Conker is crowned king of the land, and while he finally has everything anyone could ever ask for, he realizes something. He doesn't want any of this. None of this matters since he lost the one person he ever cared for. After the credits, he drowns his sorrows in the bar and lives in a drunken state. But this time, in contrast to the opening cinematic, he takes the right way back to his home, which won't matter much because there will be nobody there to receive him. It's hard to tell if this can be considered a bad ending, cause it's the only one available in the entire game, but it's still pretty depressing. What do you guys think? Do you consider this a bad ending? Let me know in the comments. I swear, I wasn't planning on bringing up this game again for the 5th time. Unicorn Overlord. Yeah, I know I've talked quite a lot about this game for the past few months, but it's really that good, and not only that, it has a bad ending. In the story, the protagonist Alain was forced to escape from his home country when he was a young child, as his mother is slain and his lands are conquered by the evil emperor Galerius. 10 years later, Alain starts his own army called the Liberation, all with the objective to free the lands from the evil empire of Zenoira and to take down the one responsible behind it all, Galerius. You see, one cool aspect about Unicorn Overlord is that you have some sort of freedom in how you want to tackle the game. There is an intended order, but there are times in which you can take harder challenges early on, or even better, go straight to the final boss in the first few hours of the game. Yes, you can actually skip 90% of the game whenever you want, but is that really the right thing to do? I mean, you're gonna be missing out on important plot points, such as being able to perform the Rite of the Covenant with any character you want. You won't be able to power up the Ring of the Unicorn and you will miss out on a lot of lore. Well, if you decide to speedrun the game and finish it as soon as you can, your reward will be a bad ending. Not only does this involve your childhood friend Scarlet potentially turning evil, there's more than that. If you actually manage to defeat Galerius, you come to a terrible realization. The evil emperor you were trying to kill this entire time was nobody else but your supposedly deceased mother being mind controlled this entire time. You unknowingly committed matricide, and to rub even more salt to the wound, by defeating Emperor Galerius you essentially became a new vessel for him to take over your body, and with no way to counter the curse, Alain becomes the new Emperor of Zenoira, kills his own father figure, and plunges the entire world into eternal chaos, all while you see some of your former allies turning evil too. I find this bad ending really shocking, but also kind of funny in a way. Like, think about it. The developers purposely gave you the option to fight the final boss early on in the game. And what's your reward for achieving that? Mass genocide! So yeah, don't forget to liberate the other countries, strengthen the ring of the unicorn, and get married. It's the only way to ensure a happy ending. The Persona series is no stranger to bad endings. Even as early as the first game, you can do certain actions that will result into more disturbing ends to the stories. And overall, most of these bad endings are pretty cool. We could talk about the Accomplice ending in Persona 4 and how insane Adachi is. We could discuss the Maruki ending from Persona 5 Royale. But I still haven't played Royale. So right now, I want to focus on my favorite bad ending from one of my favorite entries in the Megaten series. Persona 3. Let me ask you something. If you knew exactly when you're gonna die, what would you do? That's a question that Persona 3 poses. There's a point in the story in which you find out that the end of the world is approaching, a cataclysmic event known as the Fall. So your friend Ryoji, who is the appraiser of death, presents you with two options. Either you go on living in fear every single day, fight an unwinnable battle, and die a gruesome death. Or you kill Ryoji, delay the fall, forget everything about the events of the game, and live the rest of your remaining days in blissful ignorance. The fall will happen instantly and you won't even notice it. A swift, painless death. If you choose the latter, that's exactly what happens. You go back to being a high school student and everyone forgets what happened. The third graders graduate from high school and the second graders go out for karaoke and then... nothing. Nothing at all. Many fans imply that this final frame is the exact moment when the fall happens, the end of it all. This ending is brilliant because when you look at it without context, it doesn't seem like a bad thing. All members of SIS were able to go back to being normal students again. Yeah, the fall happened, but nobody noticed it. But when you consider everything you've done up to this point, it's really hard to watch. I've gone in depth about why SIS is one of my favorite JRPG parties of all time. But to sum it up, it's how much they shine, both as individual characters and as a group of friends. Throughout the course of the story, you see them struggle, learn, and grow into better versions of themselves. The bad ending basically erases all of that. Everyone forgot their reasons to go on. They forgot what they went through together, and it's so difficult to watch that genuine friendship be severed. This is something that the remake presents even better, as the ending cinematic shows isolated shots of each member of SIS all doing their own thing, representing their shallow bonds and just how badly they regressed as characters. And you know what the craziest part is? You caused this. This was your decision and your decision alone. Your friends trusted you with this choice. They all wanted to keep on fighting even if it meant death, but you were the one to pull the trigger and erase their memories. It is a bad ending that doesn't seem too bad in hindsight, but leaves you hollow by the end of it. Now it is time I finish off with the game that inspired me to make this video. Faith, the Unholy Trinity. I honestly can't put into words how masterful this game is. It's incredible how much it does with so little it has, how it can achieve true horror through primitive graphics, how it can scare you with a simple sound design, and how it can keep your attention with an amazing story. And its bad endings are nothing to scoff at either. But the one I want to talk about is the worst one you can get in the third chapter of the game, a new vessel. Faith, the Unholy Trinity puts you in the shoes of John Worth, a priest that once failed to perform an exorcism on a girl named Amy Morin. 1 year later, he decides to return to the Morin household and finish what he started, armed with nothing more than a crucifix and
a gun with 1 bullet.
Unfortunately for John, he also has to deal with another creature named Michael Davis. The exorcism is futile and he fails to save Amy Morin once again, a failure that will continue to plague his mind for the following chapters. Chapters 2 and 3 serve many purposes. They build up more on the story, concepts, and lore set up by Chapter 1. They give you a better look at important figures like Father Garcia and Gary. and you also learn about the Profane Sabbath, an event that will summon a demon that will unleash chaos upon the world. But these chapters also serve to showcase how John's guilt and regrets are killing him from the inside. His weakening faith is even symbolized through the crucifix he uses throughout the course of the game, going from gold in the first chapter, silver in the second, and bronze in the final one. If you decide to let John succumb to his fears and refuse to investigate the daycare in chapter 3, then you get the worst ending of the game. John wakes up with the crucifix upon his bed being turned upside down. When he looks out of his door, he realizes he failed to prevent the Profane Sabbath. He's surrounded by cultists, there's corpses everywhere, and chaos reigns! John decides to enter a previously closed-off room blocked by crucifixes. Inside, he finds Amy Maureen once again. He drops to his knees and tells her that he cannot take this anymore and begs her to stop tormenting him, to which she replies with, John is teleported to the Martin household, now in ruins. While exploring the place, he recounts the events of the first exorcism, hating himself even more, regretting making a deal with the devil, telling to himself how he should have saved Amy, how she should have lived a normal life. And finally, after learning a horrifying truth about the Martin family, John reaches a breaking point, succumbs to his guilt, gets on his knees, and that's when Amy and Michael come to grab him by the arms, and then this happens. Damnatio Memoriae. This goes beyond death. His body, his memories, and his soul are completely erased from existence. Both God and demons find him unforgivable, so the only fate left for him is nothingness. This is how John Ward can meet his end, through cowardice, inaction, and by losing his faith in God. It's a very depressing ending, and easily one of the best I've seen in my life. It left such a strong impression on me that I had to make it the highlight of the video. Faith, the Unholy Trinity, is a masterpiece any horror fan should experience. So now I want you guys to tell me, what are your favorite bad endings in video games? Did you find them cool? Did they traumatize you? Please let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, thank you so much for your time. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to support this channel and my dream, you know, you can do so by liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, or Patreon. That will help me so much. You'll be really helping me achieve my dream. Have a wonderful day and take care. I'll see you next time.